Three, two, one.
Becoming teachers, the unseen. The educational industry is already being influenced by cognitive and cloud computing, IoT, and other trends imposed by the Industry 4.0. As we were moving forward steadily into that era, we were suddenly hit by the pandemic. Therefore, in the times of lockdown, due to the coronavirus COVID 19, face to face educational functions had to be moved online using remote working sites and tools. Well, in this current situation, the teachers' roles have and are changing definitely rapidly in the new environment. Well, what does the current situation present for the teaching profession? What are some of the unseen matters that have arisen in the training of teachers? Anything that we may have overlooked after all? Good evening, Professor, doctors, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Malar Arasi R.K. Sundram. To address these questions today, Institute Pendidikan Guru Kampus Pulau Pinang is privileged to have Professor Dr. Muhammad Kamarul Kabilan Abdullah, a professor at the School of Educational Studies, University Science Malaysia. Dr. Maria Ibrahim, Head of Department of Languages at Institute Pendidikan Guru, Kampus Pulau Pinang, and Cik Norashikin Zainul Abidin, who had obtained her bachelor's in teaching English as a second language from Institute Pendidikan Guru Kampus Pulau Pinang and has 5 years of teaching experience. Currently, very proud to say that she's doing her master's at the University of Warwick, UK. Welcome, Prof. Kamarul, Dr. Maria, and Cik Shikin. And thank you very much for being able to be here with us today. To start the ball rolling, Prof. Kamarul, what does the current situation actually present for the teaching profession?
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to thank IPG Pulau Pinang for inviting me to this talk. And let me just quickly respond to the first question. What does the current situation present for the teaching profession? It's so obvious that, in these times of crisis, especially in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, things are very different. I'm 52 this year, and in my 52 years as a student, as a teacher, as a lecturer, I have never seen or experienced a situation as this, whereby everything is so difficult. Movement is difficult, economic-wise is difficult, relationship between family members are made difficult, and of course, in terms of teaching and learning, it has been very, very difficult in the past 1 year. Now, so I'm going to start off as a parent first. I have I have many children, so I'm trying to figure out how many are school going. So I have 8 school-going children, right, at various levels, from kindergarten, primary, secondary, and of course university. So at each level, I have at least one of them studying at different levels. So what is the challenge for me in terms of as a parent, and how do I see the teaching profession these days? And this has, if I were to pinpoint one particular factor or one variable, it would be very difficult, because everything is interconnected. They are intersected. One influences the other, one contributes to the other, one affects the other. So that is the kind of challenges that we are living in right now, and it is very, very challenging for the education sector, of course, when we talk about education, then you're talking about the teaching profession. So as a parent, when the teachers, for example, like I was saying, I have 8 children who are going to schools at various levels. And as a parent, sometimes the ministry overlooks, the ministry thinks that it's just, one child to a family. No, like in my family, with the schedule that is forwarded by the schools based on the ministry's instruction, then I have to prepare 8 tablets or laptops or computers with internet connection, because all of them are having classes or one kind of interaction or videos that they have to watch or tasks that they have to complete. So here comes the part where infrastructure and the challenges for the teachers are that, I mean, teachers are doing their work, and they have been very dedicated, most of them, as far as I know, based on the videos that they post on the social media, the reports that are done in the newspapers and TV interviews. So we know teachers are doing the work, but the thing is, the infrastructure is not there. And when I say about the infrastructure, I mean, Alhamdulillah, with God's grace, I'm able to provide, not 8 tablets, but I could make those tools available on sharing basis and so forth. But imagine a lesser parent, a lesser family who are not economically strong, or they are the ones who are directly impacted. Like those who are working in the hotel industry. Parents could be working in the hotel industry, whereby, like in Penang, we know many hotels have been closed down in Penang, and Penang being a tourist state, uh, a lot of its economic resources depend on the tourism. So these are the parents who will not be able to provide all this infrastructure, which is not in place. Um, Even if they are able to, then we have the issue of the internet connection not being very strong. And one case, I think, which made headlines in Malaysia is the girl who was climbing up the tree to get, a proper internet access. So, so these are the challenges um, that we face in this era, in new norms. And I, s- I just like to bring in Bill Gates at this moment. He actually predicted that um, at one stage, I think a few years back, he predicted that a pandemic will hit us, and it will bring a lot of pain, a lot of challenges in every sector, and that brings us to the other questions which are related as well. So, for example, the other part, the infrastructure I was talking about. So when the first MCO, um, at home I only had like a computer and a laptop. So now I have to get another additional 2 or 3. And I was trying to go online, and I have to go, to purchase. It was so difficult. Everything was sold out. So that's the other issue, the infrastructure. So we don't actually have all these things in place. And then suddenly, when we have to go online, complete online teaching and learning, uh, sometimes teachers are not well trained, or they're not exposed, or they themselves do not have the current knowledge on implementing online teaching and learning, which is based on effective practices or efficient theories and pedagogical theories and models. So those are the things. The other thing that now the ministry has to think. The ministry has to think about many things. Um, Again, moving as a parent, then comes the daily teaching and learning. Not to criticize teachers, but I do understand not everybody is well versed with the use of ICT, right? And what I notice is that a lot of homeworks are given, activities are given, but not real engaging teaching and learning using ICT. That is missing. So I do understand. The inclusion of CFR framework is another aspect that we need to look at. Um, a lot of things are changing. A lot of things are happening. From the syllabus are changing. The assessment processes and practices are changing, and all this, who is going to bear the burden? The teachers, of course. So now, maybe later at the second part of the question, I will address some of the issues that, the way we train teachers cannot be following the same model that we've been doing all this while. You know, we are not preparing teachers. We are very much reactionary rather than being, we are not taking initiative. I mean, the kind of teachers that we are producing is teachers who are reactionary, administrators who are reactionary, and curriculum which is reactionary. We need to be producing the curriculum, the teachers, the administrators that are dynamic, fluid, flexible for us to move forward. And I think that is one of the things that the current teaching profession is not ready. So this pandemic is a good example, is a good test in many ways, that not only in Malaysia, but also in many other countries, it actually opened many cans of worms, if I put it that way, in the sense that now suddenly you realize, many things are not in place. But I do recognize and acknowledge that the ministry is trying their very best. They have taken a lot of initiatives to address these issues. But I think we are still very far away from reaching the ideal stage in terms of teaching and learning. One, in terms of the teaching profession itself, especially in the current era of COVID-19. I think that's all for now. Um, and maybe when Dr. Maria, as well as the other panelists, um, are giving more inputs, then I can sort of like connect all these ideas in my second session of the question. I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Kamarul. Prof. Kamarul has put forward that one big challenge faced by parents is whether they are being able to provide the modern technology for their children to be able to sit and study. And as for the teachers, it's quite obvious that teachers may not be actually fully skilled in using the modern technology in teaching. Plus, teaching methods, of course, need to differ during the pandemic. Dr. Maria, in your opinion, what is actually unseen in this teacher professionalism at the moment? Well, does the pandemic open up to issues that you think we may have overlooked after all?
Thank you, Puan Mala, for that question. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon to all who's with us this afternoon. And thank you to Prof. Kabilan for giving the perspective of her father, and that's very important. Now, I would like to talk from the perspective of a teacher educator. And Prof rightly point out that we need to look at the way we train our teachers. But first of all, let me begin by saying this. Becoming a teacher, even without the pandemic, is a highly complex process. Now, teaching involves the person. The teacher comes into the profession with a set of beliefs, possibly through observing their own teachers, through primary and secondary education, and whether or not that person accept or reject those notions of becoming a teacher, we need to remember that negotiations are always taking place as these teachers strive to find a suitable teacher identity for herself. And I'm very interested in the issue of teacher identity. So when we talk about teacher professionalism, it is not really a straightforward process. Now, the teacher's main duty, in my opinion, is to get into the minds and connect with each student individually to make an impact on his behavior or her behavior on a daily basis. Now, if the teacher is successful, the teaching flows smoothly into the minds of the students. This is one of the unseen. This is by no means an easy task, but perhaps it is teachable. Is it not? I would like to hear what Prof would like to say about that. But one thing is for sure, we need to learn. This pandemic is really a wake-up call for all of us, especially teacher trainers. Now, several studies have shown that besides subject matter knowledge, the intellect, as we were having the conversation with Prof before we started, and besides the teaching knowledge and the teaching skills, personality is also the key factor that influence students' learning patterns. So, are we paying enough attention to the growth of the teacher that will help influence students' learning? Or are we, again, may I quote Prof, just having a reactionary curriculum? Now, the answer to this question of that which is unseen has to be answered by classroom practitioners, although we do get a sense of some of the problems teachers are facing. And I'm thankful for Facebook because the unseen is being made possible, visible through the complaints and the crisis that teachers are sharing on their Facebook pages. Now, we may assume that teaching and learning happens concurrently. This is not always the case. Teaching is not only about imparting textbook knowledge. Managing learning involves managing the behaviors of the students as well. So, in my years as a teacher myself, I can boast that I've got more years than Professor Kavilan. Not necessarily a good thing. I dare say that the teaching, the transfer of textbook knowledge, is the easiest part, but students' learning is not always so clear and easy to ascertain. By far, the most challenging part for teaching isn't, the challenging part for the teacher isn't the teaching. It is managing the students' learning. And those students of mine who's been through me with practicum, they know that because every time I tell them, I don't want to see you teach, I want to see your students learn. And they often get puzzled by that statement. At teacher training level, we must remember to engage with our trainees too. We need to keep listening to them in terms of what they think, what becoming teachers is. And the unseen needs to be seen. At this stage, I would like to share something here. Recently, I had a chat with one of my students who told me that she was really affected by a course that she took last semester, which was multicultural literature. And she felt that she had learned so much from the course and she wants to become a teacher who addresses issues of pluralism in the classroom. She was concerned that despite living in a multicultural society, we are not doing it so well. The races do not really mingle. That was what she said. That was what her concern was. So now we have a critical moment, a moment where students can learn. This is the kind of thing that should be brought to the forefront and not left in the background. So we need to prepare the teachers for things that is unexpected. Again, Prof. Kabilan already suggested that. The unseen needs to be seen, and we need to get trainees to think about the kind of teachers they want to be. And I would like to emphasize that effective teachers are those who possess more than just good techniques and pedagogical skills. They need to have a strong sense of teacher professional identity. Now, allow me to quote my favorite reference when it comes to teacher education, Janet Elser, and she says to not allow students to talk about such issues, to not teach them how and why such issues are important to the teaching lives, to not give them the opportunity to speak and take the time to hear them. We are doing pre-service and in-service teachers a disservice. I love that phrase. Now we are living out, she says, we are forgetting or choosing to forget an important, if not the most important part of being a teacher, which is the teacher identity. So now, in order to navigate and develop interprofessional relationships and identities, we need to recognize certain factors. Like, for example, teaching is an emotional process, and we may disagree with that, but it is something so important. I had the privilege of going to a school in Bali. You may have heard of the Green School. And it is so surprising, but pleasantly surprised, that yoga is actually a compulsory course for the students who go to the green school. Now, people who do yoga will understand the benefit of yoga, which include managing stress. Now, the people behind this school acknowledge the importance of having strong emotional control over self. We too need to talk about the emotions that teachers encounter and not dismiss it as unimportant. or insignificant. We need to know many teachers are opting for retirement, and the number is rather alarming. And it could be due to the fact that Prof brought up earlier that teachers are feeling incapable of handling teaching in this pandemic. So how do we get teachers to be strong emotionally to say that I can do it, I can learn? You know, there are people who are 80 years old and they're learning, and some people who are only 40 to say like I give up, I can't do all this Google Classroom. So that's why teacher training needs to take into account. I'm not suggesting we have yoga, although I would be so pleased if yoga is a compulsory component of teacher training. But what I'm saying is we need to listen and we need to be creative in thinking about what other courses. And I hope Prof will bring up about the new teacher curriculum that we should be thinking of. And I would really like to work with Prof if he ever wants to do a new curriculum. Prof, now, another thing that I want to bring up is that teaching requires communicational skills. And I think we know that in life, we all need communication skills. Now, this has become increasingly important as parents more than ever have access to teachers' contact, and they do connect with teachers at a level never imagined before. Teachers are complaining about having to reply to WhatsApp at 12 o'clock midnight. And I was appalled at the recent incident, which I saw on my former trainee's page, where she found a parent standing in front of her gate asking this teacher to help solve a parenting crisis that the parent was not able to handle. Now, this is scary. Are we prepared for this? This is really scary. And I feel for this teacher who has to address some issues on the spot. And these two parents disappearing at the gate is really scary. And finally, I would like to say that teaching requires the ability to engage with the communities of practice. We could have another webinar on communities of practice. It's a huge issue, but students, colleagues, top management, parents. So these issues have significantly become more apparent during the pandemic. And if you want to have a pandemic-proof education, you need to talk about these issues, about teachers. It's not enough to talk about the technical aspects of teaching. You can talk about Google Classroom, how we teach our teachers to use Google Classroom. Google Classroom might be dead in 3 years' time. So this will soon change. Then we will know that. But if we have good teachers, we will know what to do in the event of crisis. We need strong teachers. We have seen many innovations coming out of good teachers, and we have today Teacher S is one of those teachers who's been contributing much in this pandemic, and we will hear from her soon. I'm looking forward to that. And so teachers are really important. I would like to end with this quote from O'Connell Rust. If we, as teacher educators, agree that new teachers are our last best hope for changing schools, then our course of action becomes quite clear. We must address the critical issues of beliefs, change, and leadership in our pre-service programs. We must find ways of using student teaching and other field of experiences to help our students develop deeper understanding of themselves as well as the context of teaching. So this is my perspective from a teacher educator. Puan Mala, so pandemic or not, teachers are our greatest asset to talk about these issues. Thank you very much for now. I'll be back for the second round.
Dr. Maria, thank you so much. You have actually put the reality right in front of us today. So much so that it's making us think and realize that during the pandemic, teaching has become a more, I would say, an emotional process, requiring communication skills for positive relationship and not forgetting the ability to engage with the communities of practice. Shikin, with this, now, what is your take on Dr. Maria's notion of the unseen? Well, have you had any experience of this at school?
Hi, Assalamualaikum, and a very good morning. Sorry, it's morning here, so good evening, everyone. All right. Thank you very much to IFOP for inviting me again. I'm truly honored to be sitting through amazing panelists today. Thank you very much. And relating to Dr. Maria's perspective about the unseen, now I would definitely be able to relate to everything that she has said. And the three last points that she has actually mentioned kind of intrigued me a little. So I think I'd like to talk about focus more a little on, and I think I'd start with teaching, the fact that teaching requires the ability to engage. Now, when we talk about that, it's not just about the classroom. It's not just about how we are in like managing the children in the classroom. It is the whole entire process of being in school, outside of school. That's when we talk about engaging children. And this is related to, if we study through motivation, like, self-determination theories, we'll realize that the three things that contributes, the three basic psychological conditions that contributes to engaging students and how teachers could engage students relate to the number one, competence; number two, autonomy; number three, relatedness. So these are the three things that both teachers and also students, that what we're trying to get students to be to cultivate among students as well. So when we talk about competence, it's I think it's no secret that like now more than ever, teachers are actually looking out for more knowledge, webinars, conferences, to equip themselves with technological skills, and how to deal with the ICT part of the teaching, and in terms so that we could actually equip our students to be able to do that, not just in the current teaching and learning process, but also in the future, because that's what it's going to be in the future. There's no normal. What we knew as normal, it no longer exists, so we have to be prepared about what's going to happen in the future. And this is something that we definitely want to look out for in the future as well, and in terms of how our students are going to face the world in their future, the economic process, how their working process is going to be. So ICT is a big part of it, so it requires competence on our level as teachers as well. On the other hand, in terms of autonomy, I think teachers are quite like we know that we have the autonomy, but now more than ever we are sharing our autonomy with parents, and I think we are also giving students the autonomy in the classroom, like be it a virtual classroom or even physical classroom. We are giving them the autonomy to, okay, the task today is going to be about, maybe record a video about you talking, or maybe post something, an audio about audio of your reading. So we are giving students the autonomy to do so. And last but not least, which is the important one, is the relatedness, the relationship that we have with the students. Now, because of the pandemic right now, actually, I think we have witnessed the fact that relationship isn't just about us with the students, but it's also teachers and also teachers with parents. We definitely need to highlight more on that, because it requires, like Dr. Maria said earlier, the process of negotiation, the process of communication is very important on how we put our words together to talk, because we are out there talking to parents so that we could create a better environment, a better atmosphere for the students. And this goes to why it makes teaching emotional. I have to say, teaching is very, very emotional, because we want the kids to be at their best. Their parents want them to be at their best, whether in school or at home, in tuition centers, in other places. So that doesn't come just with academic improvement or academic achievement. It goes with emotional, it goes with motivation. So if, let's say, you are sitting in the classroom, like me being a teacher, for example, you have to, right now, you have to think about not just about what goes on in the teaching process, but you have to think about, do the kids have masks? Are they sanitized? Or do they have they ordered food? Or, do they have pocket money if they didn't order food? So you have to think about all that in a classroom. And let's say if one day there's one kid sitting in the classroom, teacher, I forgot to order food this week. And I dare say to you that there's not going to be any teacher out there who's just going to let that child sit there without food and money. No, you're going to get food somehow. So there's a lot of things that you need to consider, because teachers also want to be the nurturer, the comforter in the classroom. So it's emotional. And don't take me wrong, it's not wrong at all. It's not wrong, because that's what makes us human being. We feel. Empathy is a very big emotion to feel, and as teachers, I think we are allowed to feel that. We're allowed to show that. Then that's the best part of all. And going to how relationship is important now, this is incredibly something that I think that we talk about all the time, relationship with the students, because students don't learn from people they don't like. This is something from a TED talk that one of the TED talks by I can't remember, but the title is "Every Child Needs a Champion," something that Miss Lok made us watch before this. So you need to be that. We need to be all that. And now we are also negotiating and creating relationship with parents as well, and we are trying to figure out what our students need. How can we equip them? How can we teach them in this current situation that we have? And we need the support of the parents, we need the support of our colleagues or administrators. And more than ever, I think it makes it better knowing that if I had a bad day in class, I've got friends to talk to, I've got colleagues to maybe you won't be able to change anything, but you can vent out a little bit. And you have kind-hearted and caring administrators as well. So I think more important, the idea behind all this is about being cared for, and also to be motivated to teach in for teachers. And also I always say this actually, because when you feel motivated, the students will feel your energy, so they want to engage with you. And the notion that when you share something with love, people receive and accept it with love. So it needs to be shared with love. It's a lot of things. It's emotional, but we'll get through this. It's important to be together in this times. So I think that's all from me on a teacher's perspective, though.
Thank you, Cik Shikin. Well, Cik Shikin, your experiences, I would say, actually has made us see the actual thing faced by the teachers during the pandemic. Well, I guess during the pandemic, we really need the ability to engage, right? Engage, and then we need to share autonomy with the students. And I think, like you say, we need lots of negotiation to go on here. And I like the last part that you said. It's actually a process of love. Actually, it involves a lot of love into teaching. Well, I just simply feel that this pandemic has made us feel that teaching is actually a process of sharing lots and lots of love. Now, before we go into the second round, well, this is just a reminder to all those attending this session to do your attendance in SPL KPM using the link provided in the comments. Okay, shall we go into the second round, Dr. Maria? Dr. Maria, what can we actually learn from the pandemic? And how do you see teacher education going forward from here? Right, from the experiences of Cik Shikin, okay? How do you see teacher education going forward from here?
Well, thank you. Now, the pandemic has certainly stirred many questions for us teacher educators. It is time that we come to acknowledge that teacher education cannot be narrowed to some standardized views of teaching, which have happened a long time ago. If it has not, we should have that realization now. And I've always been concerned with the simplified view and focus on what can be easily measured. Like we measure the students' lesson plans, the activities that they plan, the worksheets, and all that, which are easy to see and assess. In other words, the practical aspects of teaching. Now, these are all tangible things, and they are, of course, the integral part of teaching. And the tangible is, of course, easier to assess. But the most challenging part about becoming a teacher isn't the teaching. It isn't the tangible. I said this in the first part. For me, it's managing the learning. It's about making meaning for the students. It's about making sense of the world that we live in today. What's the point of teaching English when people can't understand what's going on in the world today? What do we use language for? So we need to learn, unlearn, and relearn more deeply about teacher education and what we can do to move forward. We need to look at education at a broader level, not just the definition of the education, which often revolves around the narrative of acquisition of skills, knowledge, and values, but also the concept of education, which is a system aimed to socialize individuals and maximize one's potential. If you look at what's happening in the world today, this crazy world today, the Me Too movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, you sit down with a teacher and you wonder, where did we go wrong? There's so many things going wrong in this world today. The pandemic has presented to us with more challenging issues that teachers have to grapple with. That it's not just a pandemic. I mean, the COVID is just one pandemic. We are coming with one after another of different kinds of problems that the world is facing. So we should ask this question: what skills should the trainees possess in order to become an effective teacher? One that can bring about impact not only on the knowledge, but more importantly, of the growth of the students who will eventually become global players. So, in answering your question as to how teacher education should move forward, in my opinion, the practicum phase is the most important component of teacher education. And now more than ever, teacher trainers need to look at the way we go about guiding and assessing during practicum and internship phases of the teacher education program. Now, there should be more areas that we could assess so that student teachers are aware on what are the issues that make them more effective teachers. Self professional development, for example, is an area that definitely needs more scrutiny. Now, there are many areas that the trainees should develop themselves. Yeah, I talk about self-professional development. Now, before I proceed and run the risk of being shot by fellow teacher educators, especially those in IPG, because many people will be saying, we're already doing this, talking about, the things that I'm going to mention. Yes, we've been doing it, but we have to look at them differently. Now, for example, we get our students to write the teacher philosophy, the teaching philosophy. Later you can confirm whether I'm on the right track. Now, here's a great opportunity for trainees to reflect on their sense of becoming teacher. A trainee's teaching philosophy should be the core of teacher education, not just a piece of paper in the folio of practicum. It is fundamental that beginning teachers have a strong philosophy that will ground them in times of trials. It's not enough for trainees to write it without it being dissected, examined, and reconstructed. The process must happen openly and consciously. It has to be negotiated. That's where the teacher trainers come in. And we also need to do self-assessment. We need to get our students to do self-assessment. If I may share my own experience, going back to 1980s in Kota Baru, when I was on practicum, and my beloved Professor Tony Wright was observing me, and there was one lesson that I thought was a complete mess. And of course, I was nervous because he was sitting at the back, and I wondered what he was going to say. But he never commented on the failure of the lesson. What he made me do was to talk about what went wrong, how did it go wrong, and what I could have done in future not to repeat that error. Now, this is one of the most valuable lessons that I've ever learned. Trainees should have the skills to observe the ongoings of their own classroom and why things work or don't work, and they should be able to provide an insight of the happenings. And this is the skills that they must have. Shiken talks about mislook, and reflection is so important. Now, another thing is the learning progress. By this, I mean that we should look at the trainer's ability to adjust lesson plans, taking into account students' interests. Now, often we are too fixed on the lesson plan and rush to complete the lessons and the steps. We need to stop and assess the learning progress. Now, these are just three examples that we need to do in order to help trainees become effective teachers. I'm sure there are more, and I'm sure we need to talk more about this. And we need need to look at the aspects of teacher education to develop the teacher identity, because I feel that this area is highly neglected. First of all, we must allow trainees to become the teachers they want to be. This should be given serious consideration in teacher education programs. I admit that teacher professionalism is difficult to gauge, so I would suggest few ways to look at the growth of the teacher professional identity. And of course, it will require a lot of some aspects that I feel that could improve and move forward, as your question suggests, Puan Mala, is to make sure that reflective practices are done in all seriousness. Lecturers, first of all, need to train themselves to understand between the difference of reflecting and reporting. A research done on teacher trainees by a lecturer in IPG Gaya discovered that majority of our trainees are not able to reflect well. They do not go beyond level 1 and 2, which is just mere reporting. So it is insufficient for us to say that, oh, we do get our students to write reflection, it's compulsory for them to write reflection. Do we respond to those reflections? Do we bring it up to the front? There must be a formal platform to do that. Engaging students, we've touched on this, Ash has touched on this. We need to look at lesson plans that will engage students. And may I share, we have time, I would like to share, I was privileged to go to Canada when the teacher trainees were going out on practicum. And I was surprised to find that these teachers were placed in a First Nation. The First Nation is like our Orang Asli. And the job of the teachers, the trainees, was to find ways to make the students want to come to school, because just like our Orang Asli student, the truancy is very high and lack of motivation and all that. So, putting the teacher trainees at the deep end for them to just come up with lesson plans, I thought that was amazing. So it was not about looking at lesson plans, whether they have step 1, step 2, step 3. Now they put in a school where students don't want to come and learn, do something to make the students want to come and learn. That's something so different. And of course, collegiality, trainees should exhibit the ability to network and use networking to the advantage of the classroom practices. And I would like to commend Teach for Malaysia. I think that they have understood this and they set up very good networking system for their trainees. I was observing the trainees under TFM, and I found that networking was very important for beginning teachers to fall back on whenever they need support. So basically, we need to have more dialogues with focus on what the teacher wants to become as a teacher. And this will then require negotiations to take place in terms of personal choice of the teacher as well as the societal expectation. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, oh, they can be whoever they want to become. There are expectations. And so that's why the negotiation is important. So if I could sum up my session, it's about teacher education should be able to create opportunities for engagement, should make available modes of belonging where they feel they belong to the school, they belong to the community, encourage negotiation to take place, and facilitate the identification with the personal teacher identity. And this will in turn provide learning spaces for trainees in order to develop strong professional identities, thus enabling them to maneuver their teaching through the winds of change. Thank you, Pamela.
Thank you, Dr. Maria. Dr. Maria, you have actually made us think, that writing reflections after a lesson is just not merely saying that lessons fulfilled, lessons done, objective fulfilled, right? You have brought forward to say that actually reflective practices are really important, in which student teachers should be able to make meaningful reflections on their lessons to actually encourage them to learn and relearn. Another thing that you had said is we student teachers have to really identify their students' area of interest at school, and they need to try to connect their lessons to the interests of the students. And the last thing that you said was actually their ability to network, right? To network and try to get the advantage of all sorts of classroom practices that they could see and learn. Right. with that, Prof. Kamarul, now, what adjustments do you think we need to make in the way that we train teachers?
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Maria, and also to Shikin for the input given. First of all, we can't deny two main criteria even research has identified, in terms of becoming a very effective, a very good teacher. Passion, and creativity. So passion and creativity. Passion is where you really want to become a teacher. You really want to make a difference. You really want to contribute. And having that passion alone is insufficient. You need to have the knowledge, because knowledge will fuel the passion, and then out of it comes creativity. If you're passionate but without knowledge, then nothing's going to happen. So you need to have that. Passion is number one, of course, and therefore, in terms of revising the teacher education programs, or the first thing I think is the selection of candidates, the pre-service teachers. How do you select? How do we identify? How do we recognize this person is very passionate and is willing to learn, and therefore achieving creativity would be much easier. So identifying those who are passionate, and it's very difficult. Even in USM, sometimes we do get, the results are all good. Students who achieve 3.2, 3.5, 3.6, or even 4.0 for their STPM and matriculation. They, and they are good candidates, but then when it comes to appreciating the becoming of a teacher, identifying the passionate, it's not the same. The other thing is whether they are here because of the achievement that they achieve during STPM and matriculation, or is it they are really here because of their passion, right? What about a student, let's say gets below 3.0, but she is highly passionate about becoming a teacher. But then you have the other spectrum, 3.9, 3.8, 4.0, couldn't get into medicine. So the best other option says, oh, become a teacher, right? But that is not, to me, getting 4.0 and then becoming a not so passionate teacher compared to 3.0 or even 2.8 or 7, but really, really interested in becoming a teacher, I would rather choose 2.8, or 2.9, because that is something which cannot be, it could be nurtured perhaps, but it has to come from the students themselves, right? So once you have a very passionate selection, you have passionate candidates, and then we go to the program, then the program, the teacher education program must suit that criteria, the criteria of producing a passionate and creative teacher, right? And therefore, that program has to be dynamic, it has to be flexible, it has to be fluid, innovative, and not reactionary like what we have right now, So when something happens, then we react. The ministry reacts, oh, now we need to do this. I give you a good example, CEFR, Common European Framework. I think all the English language teachers would know, right? I'm not against CEFR, but I'm saying, why not we come up with a Malaysian English language teaching and learning framework? Why must we follow CEFR? Why? What is the need for? Yes, we can, like some of them claim, we can go international, and they give you a few more reasons why we need to go CEFR. But again, that is reactionary. You're reacting to what other people are doing in Europe, what has been done. How come we are not doing something that will seize the initiative for teaching and learning of English for Malaysian people by Malaysian experts, based on Malaysian context, based on the resources that we have, based on the culture, based on the philosophy, based on the multicultural elements that that is in our society. So we are always reacting. We are always reacting. And to whom are we reacting? We are not reacting to the Malaysian situation. Just now, who was it said about Orang Asli? It's a very good point. But if you take CFR program and you go to the Perkampungan Orang Asli, you tell me what can you do? I would prefer a teacher education program that moves from, that is no longer centralized, but perhaps more district in nature, empowering the teachers. Shikin was talking about autonomy. The word is empowerment. We need to empower our teachers to be able to interpret things. Right now, my gut feeling is that our teachers are not creative because everything is controlled by the central, which is obviously KPM. Transfer is controlled by them, transfer of service. If you want to move to another state, controlled by them. The curriculum is decided by them. Leading countries like UK, US, Australia, the district are more powerful in terms of determining the curriculum. The curriculum is the same throughout those countries. It is just how the curriculum are interpreted, right? So if we move from a more centralized curriculum to a more district level curriculum, then we need to give more empowerment to the teachers. Empowerment does not only mean, okay, now here's the power, do what you want to do. No, it has to come with the knowledge. And when it comes to the knowledge, then we need to think about perhaps it's high time that teachers should have masters, at least, just like in IPG, in universities. The JPA circular says, if you want to teach in a university, you must have a minimum qualification of a master's degree. So I think it's high time in Malaysia to move towards that, certification and knowledge going hand in hand. Because doing masters, in Finland, for example, all their teachers must have a master's degree before they can be part of the teaching force in Finland. So, at one stage we were accepting diploma students. Now it's a must for degree. I think the next step forward is to go masters and PhD, right? I think Dr. Maria also talked about professionalism and so forth. So if you move towards a district centralized education kind of thing, then the school could be the environment to train teachers. Let's not beat around the bush. IPTA and IPG cannot produce a complete functioning teacher. We can only provide the basics. So where would a good teacher come from? Not from the university, not from IPG, not from any IPTS, but from the school. The school is the ground for the teachers, for our students, whether it's IPG or IPTA or IPTS, for them to test out the theories that they have learned, to put into experiment different methods, different techniques, to be an inventor, a creator of teaching and learning, effective teaching and learning. And school is the best environment. But now we still see that, if the school, I know the concept, now a lot of CPD, the professional development courses are streaming down to the schools and PPD, which is a good thing. So, but more empowerment, more freedom has to be given to the teachers. And that includes the freedom to interpret the national curriculum according to the experts. So when I say expert, this is where the difference is. we should regard our teachers as experts, no longer as someone who only teaches. Teachers as experts means that they are able to identify a problem, carry out research, solve the problems, and based on these good practices are able to publish their work so that their work could be shared at the national level as well as international levels. Like in Singapore and Hong Kong, teacher salaries are one of the highest in their countries because they require masters. The teachers must be able to do research and publish as well. Right. And the idea of making a curriculum dynamic, flexible, fluid, and innovative, you need experts. We need the knowledge. And where do we go to? We don't have to go outside the school. Many of the schools these days, they have PhD holders, they have master's level teachers. Shikin is in Warwick right now doing her master's. When she comes back, if she's going to teach in a school, she should be considered as an expert, and that expertise should be cultivated, not simply kept, and when you have masters and you're recognized as expert, then of course the issue of salary could be discussed and see how we can reward teachers who have masters and who are experts in their own right in their own field. So these are the things I think we should be thinking forward. So the curriculum, my concern is up to now we have been very reactionary in nature. We are not progressing. We are not solving the Malaysian. First and foremost, we need to solve the Malaysian problem. Trying to bring in something alien and trying to get it adjusted into the Malaysian context, it's going to be very, very difficult. So that is how dynamic and fluid it should be, to me. The curriculum cannot be the same thing that we have been doing. I don't know if you guys remember, anyone of you remember, any changes made to the philosophy, to the national philosophy of education, Falsafah Pendidikan Negara. I think it was conceived somewhere in the 1980s, right? And it's still in existence till today, when we have undergone different curriculums, different norms, the society has changed, the practices, the community has changed, the values have changed, but our curriculum is driven by a philosophy that was initiated way back. How many years ago? 30 to 40 years ago. So again, we are not changing because the source of the curriculum comes from the philosophy of education. So if we want to change, it doesn't matter what is it that we want to change. We want to change the teachers, we want to change the curriculum, we want to produce 21st century learners. We need to go back to our philosophy. Now we have elements of 21st century learning, but if you try to align the 21st century learning and the philosophy, the national philosophy, you will see there's a huge gap, disparities. It does not align. So with that, I think I'll stop. Yes, Malas, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Kamarul. So we can see that Prof. Kamarul is actually stressing on the selection of the appropriate candidate for teachers training. Well, to his suggestion that the right candidate would be the one who has the passion to teach. And the second thing that he had stressed on was on the empowerment, the freedom to the teachers to interpret the curriculum. Well, I would say that really fits our actual practice now, that is classroom-based assessment. I guess what he has said is definitely going to work positively in this classroom-based assessment that we are already practicing in schools. I guess Prof. Kamarul has actually made us think, ponder, and he has given lots of suggestions on what to add on to the present content of training teachers. And now my final question is to Cik Shikin. Cik Shikin, well,
Yeah.
as a classroom practitioner, do you have any suggestions to give to the other teachers who might be actually struggling with the current situation?
Oh, hi everyone. All right. First of all, wow, I've learned so much like in this like 20 minutes of conversation from both our panelists. There's just so many things, so many inputs, so much knowledge that I myself have gained. Thank you. Now, in terms of question number 3, like what advice would I give? Now, I'm not I've not taught long enough to be considered like an experienced teacher. I'm still a novice teacher, but in the few years that I've served, I think the number one thing that teacher have to like, it doesn't matter whether you are an experienced teacher or you are a new teacher. Whenever that you feel that you need a form of knowledge, if you feel that something is going to benefit your students, then you go for it. That's something that's very important in this case, is seeking for knowledge, because all of our students are very different. They all come from different backgrounds. We teach in different kinds of schools. We also have different kinds of perspectives and interpretation. So things are going to be very different. So seek for knowledge when you have to, because we have to understand that everything comes to the children, comes to our students. What we are trying to achieve is to teach the students in a way that, you know, they won't just become smart and talented students, but they would become good human beings. That's what that we need to focus on, because more than ever the world needs kind and good human beings right now. So that's something that we need to focus on, and that will start when we as teachers go for knowledge. And I don't mean that you have to attend conferences and webinars and courses. Yes, that is one way, and ICT is one tool to upgrade or to engage your student, but it's just one tool. There are many ways that you can seek for knowledge. For example, there are many teachers in your school would have been so experienced in teaching many techniques. Do class studies, sit together and discuss about what kind of programs that you could come up with for your students. Seek for knowledge from your colleagues. And when we talk about like all this advancement and ICT, like I said, it's just one tool. And don't disregard all the techniques and strategies that we have learned before this, because whatever the way that I have learned definitely do not suit on how my students are learning these days. I can definitely not like use it directly, but we can always modify and adapt it to the current situation. For example, something that we always talk about but we don't do enough, which is storytelling. Now, storytelling is an art. Like Professor Kabilan mentioned earlier, like the whole teaching process is about passion and creativity, and storytelling is one part of it. It might seem also like old school, to be holding a storybook and flipping through, getting your students gathered. So if you feel like that's the way to do it, then go for it. If you feel like, you need to put on a costume or need to do like STEM activities in your classroom, then go for it. Anything that you need for your students, you do it. That's what it is. And that will only work if we as teachers go and look for knowledge. And we are the epitome of the lifelong learning, because we're constantly learning from other people, from our students, from what they need. So we go and seek for knowledge. We do research to find out what they need so that we can be better teachers for them. And that's why it's very important to actually seek for knowledge. And on the same note, it is very important to think about like when Prof said about empowerment, teacher empowerment. Now, you're not an only person. You're not one person. As a teacher, you have your colleagues, you have your administrators in school, you have friends in school. Do it together. empowerment always comes, when you work together, it creates a bigger impact. And it gives you the motivation to move forward, to work harder, and to just look at it in a children's perspective. And let's say, for example, if you happen to be a new teacher, and you know certain things like video editing and photo editing, and you can make ways to, like, propose like an idea that will work for the school, then go for it. And be generous in sharing your knowledge, which comes to point number 2, actually, as to form a relationship, the form of trust. As a teacher, I think more than like our knowledge, knowledge is definitely an important thing. Passion is definitely an important thing. To be able to work together is actually a very, very, imperative skill, because you're not alone. Like I said, you're not alone. You need to be able to work with others, and so there's no age difference in knowledge. If you feel like you can help other people, then be generous with your knowledge. We're teaching kids to be kind, to be respectful, and that needs to start with us teachers. So we need to be the model that you want the kids to be. So how else are you going to be the model if you do not, do what you say? You do not walk the talk. You do not walk the talk. So you need to, it's not need, it's more of something that we can practice about being kind with our fellow colleagues. If there are teachers who need help, we just go help for it. There are some other ways that, they might be able to help us with. So it's always it's a process of working together. And last but not least, I would say that, be brave. Because now the idea of creativity is something that's it's some people have to, like, get in the zone to get creative. Some people, just like, oh, you know what, we can do this, we can do that. It's very different. The process is very different, and we have to always think about coming back to our students. Whatever that we do, it needs to be meaningful for them. Like Dr. Maria said, it needs to be meaningful, it needs to be purposeful, so that it's not just something that we do in the classroom. We also need to think about how we could relate it to what is going to be for them in the future. For example, like, if we talk about creativity, now we have a lot of, like teachers get to, like, connect with other teachers across the world to be able to communicate. So it's no longer like pen pal writing letters. Of course you can. It's a very it's a skill to actually write, but you actually get to network and communicate with teachers abroad. So use that, be brave and creative, think out of the box, and there's no box. Why should it be a box? It could be a circle, it could be a triangular something. So just go for it. Be brave and let your creativity go with it. Because in the end, it comes down to what your students learn from you. Now, it always it's something that you need to, like, consider, because your students kind of mirror the way that you are. At the end of the year, there will be students like, I like how this teacher talks and presents. So they will be mirroring you, because they look at you as the model that they want to be. So the model that they want to be should be, something that's, creative, someone who is able to be kind to other people, respectful, someone who is, good at what they do, someone who ignites the passion to learn. That's what teachers have to be, more than being smart and intellectual. Yeah, of course, all that is very important. This is something else that we could add on to, And I think everybody knows, if you're a teacher, you definitely know about Sir Ken Robinson. And he actually said that, creativity diminishes as we age, because we're afraid to make mistakes. So please go for it. Know that you have people who are going to support you in school, which is another thing that we need to focus on, about being motivated to be in school, relationship in school. So as I summarize what my points would be, like, first, go for knowledge. Knowledge can be in any way, anything that will be meaningful for your students. Whatever you learn goes down to your students, so you do what you have to do. Number 2, take it as a challenge. We are supposed to be human beings. We model the human being that we want our children to be. So, be brave, take it as a challenge, and form the trust, bond, or networking circle that you need in order to equip your children with those things. And last but not least, if you need any help, be brave and go for it. Sometimes we just need to admit that, maybe I need someone else to help me with. So you do what you have to do for the students. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chishiken. Well, Chishiken believes that teachers have to actually move on, right? Adjusting to the current situation by learning new things, and always seeking knowledge to encourage lifelong learning. Well, I guess this session has been an eye opener for all of us, because here Prof. Kamarul has stressed that you know while being a teacher, you really need creativity in lessons, and the lessons have to be really engaging. Plus, with what Dr. Maria has said, that during the pandemic, teaching becomes a more emotional process, and it really requires communication skills for positive relationship. And she was actually suggesting that we have to have the ability to engage with the communities of practice. And after that, we had Shikin, right, asking us and telling us. And of course, I believe very much that we have to go on. We have to go on. We can't just stop here. The pandemic is, of course, it's a pandemic, but we can't stop here. We need to go on, right? Dr. Kamaro did suggest that, teachers have to to be skilled with the modern technology, so that the lessons that we conduct would be more engaging, and it has lots and lots of creativity. And with that, professors, doctors, ladies and gentlemen, we came, we heard, and I believe we may have conquered the content provided by Prof. Kamaro, Dr. Maria, and Chikshikin. And I would like to ask if, Prof. Kamaro, Dr. Maria, Chikshikin, would you like to say something before we come to an end with this session? Some advice, maybe? Some good thoughts, maybe?
Pomala,
Yeah.
I think that what I would like is for teachers who are listening in, whether now live or later, to leave in the comment section what are the things that they are facing, the unseen that they are facing. That would be very helpful for us teacher educators to understand, because we are here in the teacher training. We need to know the real issues that teachers are facing in classroom practices. I hear stories of how some teachers, they come up with worksheets and they go from house to house to deliver, and I really salute these teachers. So those teachers who are out there who are doing this kind of thing, salute to you. May God bless you. Keep doing all the good things that you're doing, but do let us know, because we need to understand really what you guys are doing. Amazing stuff that you're doing. Please do not be shy. Simple things, as even as what Shikin was saying, making sure your student has got things to eat. We need to understand these issues, because I, as a teacher educator, would like to know this to better prepare myself in my teacher training. So thank you for this opportunity, Puan Mala and the organizer. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Maria. Prof. Kamaro, can we get something from you?
Okay. Nothing much. Just do the best that you can. Apart from that, we leave it to God, inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Kamaro. Cik Ashikin, final words?
Well, thank you to the organizers who have invited me. I am truly honored to be here. And as for all my comrades out there, do what you have to do for the kids. I know a lot of people who are working really hard to make teaching, just to teach the children, or just to make sure that the kids are, doing well. Their well-being is looked after. So do what you have to do. I know exactly how you feel. Not for all the teachers, of course, there are teachers who are doing a lot more. So God bless you, and remember that we always have each other. So if you ever need any kind of support, reach out. Please reach out to the people you trust, to anyone out there that you feel who could help you, or just to listen. So reach out so that you don't get burnt out, or you be demotivated with what you do.
Thank you, Shikin. Well, I guess this session has really given the opportunity to all of us here to actually see what content, what skill would actually close up the gap that we were talking about at the first stage of our speech just now. With that, I would like to come to an end with that by saying that IPG Kampus Pulau Pinang would like to thank Professor Dr. Muhammad Kamarul Kabilan Abdullah, Professor Dr. Maria Ibrahim, and Cik Nora Shikin Zainul Abidin for opening our eyes to things that we might have been actually overlooking when training teachers. Well, this is not the end to the knowledge shared here today. It's not even the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps, I think, the end of the beginning to the knowledge shared today. Thank you all for being present here.